Welcome to the Secrets of the Bible channel. Perhaps he merely recognized an unfortunate but universal truth that history does repeat itself. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. The same as Donald Trump in 2016, when I predicted Donald Trump's win on my totally nonpartisan system. Nostradamus was a highly influential prophet who predicted terrifying events such as the deaths of kings, the rise of Nazism in Germany, and the violent French Revolution. This has left many curious whether he had any prophecies about America. Surprisingly, America also has its own Nostradamus, who has predicted all the presidential elections in the United States over the past 40 years with over 95% accuracy. We're talking about Alan Lichtman. Alan Lichtman is accurately predicted the winner of the presidential election for the past 40 years. The Nostradamus of US presidential elections. Do you want to know how accurate these two figures have been and what they predicted for Donald Trump in 2024? Join us as we explore the tales of the prophets and the fate of a king past predictions of Nostradamus. Maybe what happened with Nostradamus is that maybe he had all of that knowledge figured out already. So maybe that gave him a huge flexibility to predict many of these things. When you hear the name Nostradamus, the first thing that comes to mind is apocalyptic prophecies and doomsday predictions. But Michel de Nostradamus was just a Frenchman like us who lived between 1503 and 1506. Little is known about his family life, but historians agree he was from a noble family because he exhibited signs of someone who received a good education. He dedicated much of his life to practicing medicine and curing contagious diseases, but no confirmation that he had a medical degree. Not many people knew him until he published his book Les Prophéties in 1555. This collection of 942 prophetic quatrains made him very popular, especially in 6th century France. The verses cover various topics, from natural disasters and wars to political unrest and social changes. His followers claim that he could predict historical events like the French Revolution, the rise of Napoleon, and even the 9/11 attacks. On the other hand, critics argue that he uses vague language that allows for interpretations to fit almost any event, and his focus on broad themes like war and famine makes some predictions statistically likely to occur eventually. At the end of this video, we hope you have made up your mind on which side of the story you'll fall to. But in the meantime, let us look at some of his alarming prophecies that have already come to pass. One of the first Nostradamus prophecies to come to pass was the death of King Henry II. Henry II and the prophet Nostradamus lived at the same time, and Nostradamus, who was even famous, addressed him as the most invincible Henry, King of France, in a letter. Unfortunately, fate wasn't kind to Henry. Despite his reputation for strength and being only 40 years old, he met a gruesome end. Henry loved physical activity like hunting and jousting, and this passion for sports ultimately led to his death. In the summer of 1559, a jousting tournament was held to celebrate a peace treaty. During a joust with a young soldier, the soldier's lance broke into pieces. Tragically, the broken pieces struck the king in the eye and skull, leading to his death. King Henry II's death in a jousting accident ignited speculation that Nostradamus predicted it. A royal prince, injured in a game, free, around the middle, tossed up in chains. The prophecy in question describes a young lion overcoming an older one, piercing his eyes through a golden cage, and 2 wounds leading to a cruel death. While some find this very accurate, critics point out that the prophecy mentions a field of combat and a single battle, which doesn't quite match the celebratory joust where Henry was fatally injured. Even if the details don't align perfectly, the king's death, associated with Nostradamus' words, is relevant to the prophet's words. That's not all. Some people believe that Nostradamus predicted the rise of Adolf Hitler. One quatrain from his writing mentions a young child born in depths of Western Europe. Is tongue seducing great troops? Is reign increasing in the Eastern Kingdom? A young child will be born of poor people in Western Europe. This child would then seduce a great troop with their words and gain fame beyond Europe. Another quatrain mentions fighting close by the Hister, which could be interpreted as a reference to Hitler or the Danube River. Historically called the Hister, but the most explosive prophecy of Nostradamus to date seems to be the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. One quatrain describes, "Scourges the like of which was never seen, occurring within 2 cities." This devastation could be seen as a possible prediction of the atomic bombs. The prophecy goes on to depict a grim scenario with famine within plague, which might be interpreted as radiation sickness and war's long-term effects, and people put out by steel, potentially referring to the airplanes that dropped the bombs. Enough of the past. Let us talk about shocking Nostradamus predictions for Donald Trump. Nostradamus. Predictions for Donald Trump. How would you feel to learn that there is a living Nostradamus today? No, we are not referring to the French Michel de Nostradam. We are talking about Alan Lichtman, popularly known as the Nostradamus of U.S. presidential elections. He has an outstanding record of correctly predicting 9 out of the last 10 U.S. presidential races. With his systematic and data-driven approach, Lichtman is now gearing up to forecast the upcoming election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. In case you've never heard about him, Lichtman is a seasoned history professor at American University in Washington, and he started his election prediction journey over 40 years ago. And while Donald Trump acknowledged my prediction of his win last time, he didn't understand the deeper meaning of my system. In 1981, while serving as a visiting scholar at the California Institute of Tech, he partnered with Vladimir Kilis-Borak, a prominent earthquake prediction expert with a strong interest in American politics. Their collaboration created the renowned 13 Keys to the White House, an innovative method that examines presidential elections through the perspective of stability versus disruption. The 13 Keys approach blends historical stability patterns with contemporary political dynamics and has become a fundamental tool in election forecasting. Lichtman jokingly acknowledged that he discovered the keys by accident. He said, "I'd love to tell you I developed my system by running my eyes in the archives by deep contemplation. But if I were to say that, to quote the late great Richard Nixon, that would be wrong. But how exactly do the 13 keys work?" You're about to get blown away. The Keys to the White House are the world's only do-it-yourself prediction system. You all can now become election forecasters using the 13 keys. The 13 keys are valid false questions designed to gauge the incumbent party's chances. These keys assess various factors, including economic conditions, social unrest, significant policy changes, and the candidate's charisma. If 6 or more keys are false, it indicates that the incumbent party is likely to lose power. Unlike the French Nostradamus, these are not mystical prophecies, but a data-driven approach. These keys also consider factors like the party's performance in the midterms, the presence of a strong challenger, the state of the economy, and public perception of the incumbent leader, and foreign policy. By analyzing these fundamental aspects, Lichtman's model has correctly predicted every presidential election since 1984, making it a powerful tool for understanding the dynamics that influence U.S. elections. Next, we'll reveal the prophecy of the Nostradamus of U.S. elections for 2024. How accurate is the Nostradamus of U.S. presidential elections? Let us briefly walk down memory lane to understand how accurate Lichtman has been. When Lichtman and Kilis-Borak published their findings in an academic journal, they caught the attention of an Associated Press science reporter. This led to a Washington Post article titled, "Odd Couple Discovers Keys to the White House." The public was thrilled with the theories, but wanted to see Lichtman put it to practical application. An opportunity finally came in April 1982. Lichtman applied the keys in the Washingtonian magazine to predict that despite the economic recession, low approval ratings, and Ronald Reagan's advanced age, he would secure re-election 2 years later. The president's response to his prediction was Lichtman was immediately invited to the White House after he published his prediction. He met several officials there, including then Vice President George H.W. Bush. In 1988, as late as May and June, George H.W. Bush was trailing his opponent, Michael Dukakis, by 18 percentage points. He went on to win. Atwater inquired about the outcome if Reagan chose not to run for re-election. Lichtman suggested that the incumbent party would lose several critical keys, including the essential factor of incumbent charisma. Lichtman's analysis was precise. Without Reagan's charisma, the Republican candidate, George H.W. Bush, would struggle. Lichtman compared Bush's charisma to a New Jersey shopping center on a Sunday morning. Not inspiring. Lichtman, an aide at the White House, was visibly relaxed after hearing this assessment. This prediction proved true, Despite trailing his Democratic opponent in the polls by a significant margin early in the 1988 campaign, Bush ultimately won the election. Lichtman attributed Bush's victory to his ability to capitalize on the positive aspects of Reagan's legacy, including peace, economic prosperity, domestic stability, and progress in relations with the Soviet Union. Voters seemed to want to see these trends continue under Bush's leadership. Despite his successful predictions, Lichtman faced criticism from some academics. These critics argued that his system relied too heavily on subjective judgment, a significant flaw in scientific prediction. Lichtman defended his approach, pointing out that his keys were clearly defined and based on historical analysis. He argued that historians routinely make judgments based on evidence, and his system was no different. His successful track record of predictions served as further validation of his approach. Lichtman's persistence paid off. Over the next 15 to 20 years, attitudes within the academic forecasting community shifted. As complex mathematical models proved unreliable, forecasters began to see the value of combining statistical analysis with informed judgment, similar to Lichtman's approach. His keys to the White House system gained popularity, and Lichtman became a sought-after speaker. He presented his ideas at forecasting conferences, wrote articles in academic journals, and even shared his insights with the CIA on how his system could be applied to foreign elections. Remarkably, his predictions continued to be despite his high approval ratings following the Gulf War. Lichtman predicted that George H.W. Bush would be a one-term president, which led many top Democrats to forego challenging him. Then, Lichtman received a call from Kay Goss, special assistant to Governor Bill Clinton, in Little Rock, Arkansas. "Are you saying George Bush can be beaten in 1992? She asked. Lichtman confirmed his prediction. Clinton won the Democratic primary and ultimately defeated Bush in the presidential election. Both of you ran for Congress the first time you ran and you both lost. So you have that in common. But after you lost the first time you were trying to beat an incumbent congressman and you lost, did you say I'm out of politics?" The Clintons have been big fans of the keys ever since, Lichtman notes. Despite his remarkable success in predicting 9 out of 10 past American elections, Lichtman failed one. Or, as he claimed, his predictions didn't fail. Instead, the election was rigged. Let's take a closer look at this shocking failure. Why did Nostradamus Lichtman fail the Al Gore prediction? Lichtman faced the most stormy years of his prediction career in the year 2000, when he predicted a victory for Democratic Vice President Al Gore over George W. Bush, the Republican governor of Texas. While Gore won the popular vote, he lost the Electoral College by a narrow margin. Lichtman, however, maintains that his prediction was correct. He claimed that the election was stolen. According to him, the actual votes indicated that Al Gore should have won decisively, but many ballots cast by black voters, who were overwhelmingly in favor of Gore, were discarded. He compiled his findings in a report to the United States Commission on Civil Rights, stating that 1 out of every 9 to 10 ballots cast by black voters was discarded, in contrast to 1 out of 50 ballots cast by white voters. He also explained that most of these discarded votes were not the infamous hanging chads, but overvotes. Black voters had been told to punch in Gore and write in Gore, just to be sure, and those ballots were eventually discarded. He added that political scientists have since examined the election and verified his findings. Based on the voters' intent, he argued, Al Gore should have won by tens of thousands of votes. He added that he firmly believed he was correct about the 2000 election. At the very least, he argued, no definitive prediction could be deemed entirely right or wrong, allowing for arguments on both sides. He maintained that he and many others stood by his record, asserting that he was accurate in all 10 predictions. However, even if one were to argue that he was only right 9 out of 10 times, he pointed out that this was still an impressive track record. Before we reveal what this modern Nostradamus has predicted for Donald Trump in 2024, let us look at his prediction for the 2016 elections that shocked Americans. Nostradamus Lichtman's Trump prediction for the 2016 election. Perhaps Lichtman's most striking prediction, which defied polls, commentators, and conventional wisdom, was that Donald Trump, a former reality television star with zero political or military experience, would achieve an improbable victory over a former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton in 2016. How did he know? He explained that the sixth critical key was the contest key, which was Bernie Sanders' challenge against Hillary Clinton. Because no incumbent was running for re-election, the Democrats couldn't benefit from the advantages typically associated with having an incumbent candidate. The party also performed poorly in the 2014 midterms, losing another key. The absence of a significant domestic achievement after the Affordable Care Act, and the lack of a major foreign policy success following the killing of bin Laden also contributed to the tally. There were just enough keys, he said. It was not an easy call. After the election, Lichtman received a copy of the Washington Post interview, where he made the prediction. On it was written in a Sharpie pen, "Congrats, Professor, good call, Donald J. Trump." However, in the same conversation, Lichtman also forecasted, again accurately, there's a real theory behind this. And the theory is, presidential elections are fundamentally referenda on the performance of the party, holding the White House that Trump would one day face impeachment. His predictions extended to 2020 as well, with Trump's struggles in handling the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic is what did him in. He congratulated me for predicting him, but he didn't grasp the significance of the keys. The essence of the keys is that governance, not just campaigning, determines outcomes instead of addressing the pandemic substantively. But as we've seen, he believed he could talk his way out of it, and that ultimately led to his downfall. In 2020, Lichtman presented the keys as one of 3 classic prediction models at the American Political Science Association. Now, we've come to the most epic moment of the video. What has Nostradamus Lichtman predicted for Trump in 2024? Nostradamus Lichtman's Trump prediction for the 2024 election. In recent months, Lichtman has been invited to deliver keynote addresses at Asian and Brazilian financial conferences, the Oxford Union and JP Morgan. As another election approaches, he remains unconvinced by polls indicating Trump is leading Biden. I'm about to reference, but it does show Donald Trump with a steady lead in a head-to-head rematch against President Biden, putting Trump at 49%, Biden at 43%. During the 2024 presidential election, Nostradamus said he had not yet made a final prediction. He reminded his viewers of his model for 13 keys to the White House, which have been correct since 1984, to 10 elections in a row. He added that a lot would have to go wrong for Joe Biden to lose this election, because Biden is now down by just 2 keys. A recent Reuters survey shows that U.S. voters view Trump as more favorable to the economy than President Biden. In this 3-day poll, 41% preferred Trump's economic policies, while 34% favored Biden's. Oh, who did you pick for 2024? Who is leading your score sheet? Well, I haven't made a final prediction yet because things are still very fluid on my 13 keys to the White House. The remaining participants were uncertain or felt neither candidate had a superior economic stance. However, Mr. Lichtman cautioned that early polls should be taken seriously. Early polls have zero predictive value. They are momentary snapshots. For example, they indicate, if the elections were held today, this is where the candidates stand. But the election is not being held today, so these polls are not useful for prediction. Early polls often lead you astray, Mr. Lichtman told NDTV. That's not all. He also reminded people of the accuracy of his forecast of Donald Trump's 2016 victory, despite contrary poll results in media spaces. He also mentioned the 1988 election when George H.W. Bush overcame a 17-point deficit against Mike Dukakis to win with a 25-point swing. These examples demonstrate why it's essential to look beyond the polls and pundits and focus on the broader picture as indicated by the keys, he added. We expect Lichtman to predict his final 2024 presidential election in early August. He points out that Biden already holds the incumbency key, and after easily defeating token challengers in the Democratic primary, he also has the contest key. That's 2 keys off the top. This means 6 more keys would need to turn against him to predict his defeat. A lot would have to go wrong for Biden to lose. It is also important to mention that Lichtman places no importance on running mate selections and has never altered his forecast in response to an October surprise. However, he admits that no predictive model is entirely immune to shocking events. But does it mean his model might fail? Speaking during the week, when a jury was seated for Trump's criminal trial in New York concerning a hush money payment to an adult film actress, It appears that an appeal by Trump for the New York criminal trial could come just days before the November election. Lichtman explained that his keys to predicting election outcomes are grounded in historical data and trends. These keys have been developed broadly, from 1860 to the present day, prospectively up to 1984. This historical foundation allows the keys to capture and reflect significant shifts and developments in various aspects of society, including the economy, demographics, and political landscape. By examining patterns and trends over this extensive period, the keys provide a robust framework for understanding and predicting electoral outcomes, or how historical context influences contemporary elections. But he also quickly added that his model, like all human models, is not immune to errors. What Lichtman said concerning the possibility of failing is enlightening. While acknowledging the potential limitations of his predictive model, he noted that the current American election has elements that fall outside historical scope. Specifically, he refers to the situation where former President Trump, a major party candidate, is undergoing a criminal trial. He suggests that if this candidate is convicted, a scenario he considers likely, it could significantly disrupt or scramble the usual factors that his keys consider when predicting election outcomes. Simply put, his model does not capture the potential effect of Trump's conviction or potential committal to prison. This shows that Lichtman's keys have historically been reliable in forecasting election results based on established patterns. It seems this will put him in a very tight corner in predicting the winner of this year's election. Millions of people will be on edge come the night of November 5th. After 4 decades of engaging in election prediction, Lichtman will have yet another period to experience anxiety. It's nerve-wracking because many would be happy seeing me fail, he acknowledges. And if he does? I'm human, he admits. It doesn't mean my system's wrong. Nothing is perfect in the human world. Back to where we are coming from. Does the French Nostradamus have any prophecy for Donald Trump in 2024? French Nostradamus Trump prophecies for 2024. Keen Nostradamus readers believe he also made prophecies regarding Trump for the year 2024. In this prophecy, Nostradamus speaks of a false trumpet that conceals madness, causing changes in laws and standards. The interpretation suggests that this false trumpet represents Donald Trump, whose controversial actions and policies during the first term led to significant shifts in domestic and international relations in the United States. The mention of Byzantium symbolizes the United States, hinting at a transformation in its governance and policies. The prophecy also mentioned Egypt and the withdrawal of a mandate. Nostradamus readers said this suggests Trump will win the election and make radical changes to regulations and standards, particularly in financial matters. The prophecy also mentions that the ruler will shake with discord and have a bloody mouth swimming with blood. This denotes the chaos and conflict associated with Trump's presidency, including his divisive words and aggressive approach to politics. Overall, the prophecy is interpreted as a warning that Trump's second-term presidency will be entirely deception and recklessness for the nation and the world. Another Nostradamus prophecy that seems to speak about Trump's potential second-term victory is when he mentioned that a great shameless brawler will be elected governor of the army. They explained that the term shameless brawler aligns with Trump's aggressive and reckless demeanor, which has always defined his political career. Do you remember the riot after the 2020 election? His election as governor of the army is interpreted as a metaphor for assuming political leadership over America, reflecting Trump's role as commander-in-chief of the United States Armed Forces. Nostradamus also said the leader would cause a broken bridge and a city to faint from fear. This suggests that Trump's leadership will have a disruptive and unsettling impact on the United States. This may include his approach to foreign policy and national security. This interpretation calls for fear over the potential consequences of Trump's bold and assertive actions on both domestic and international fronts. The prophecy cautions about the dangers of unchecked power and aggressive leadership. It is now up to you, our viewers, to judge what the two Nostradamus have predicted about Trump. Kindly share your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for joining us today. Please like the video. If you love content like this, click the subscribe button for more.